So as we move forward to the end of the year, we're going to continue with our review lessons. And today's review lesson is going to be on exponents and the order of operations. Then we're going to get into some algebraic expressions and solving for the missing variable that's in our expressions. And then we're going to get into inequalities. So when we get into exponents then, it's not a very difficult concept. It's just one of those things where we try to rush through a lot of times and we end up writing the wrong type of math problem. If I remember that my exponent is always going to give me extra bases, then it becomes a little easier to remember. But the base is the large number, the exponent is the small number. So this tells me I'm going to have 2. So I'm going to have extra bases other than just the one itself. So I'm going to have 2 of these 3's, and then I just do the multiplication because they always mean multiplication problems. I would have 3 times 3, which is going to be 9. So when I look at exponents, I just have to remember the large one is going to have it written extra times. However many times that little exponent of the 2, the 3, or in this case, the 5. So I'm going to have the base, and I'm going to have extras of them. Well, how many are there going to be? There's going to be 5 of them. So they show 5 2's all the way across. And then I pick up my handy dandy calculator and I type in 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 equals, and I get 32. So as I'm doing it, it's important to remember my base and my exponent. And then it's also important to remember what the directions are asking me to do. I have 2 different things to do on these problems. I'm going to show what the expression is. I'm going to write it out. I'm going to change it from an exponent into an expression. And once again, an expression is a math problem without an answer. Then I want to find the value. So then I go from having an expression into an equation because I'm going to make sure it has an answer. So the first thing I want to do is write the expression. The second thing I want to do is I want to calculate it. That's where my handy dandy calculator comes in. Handy, because I can just type it in and do it. So I have my base of 3 and my exponent of 4. So I know my exponent is going to make extra bases. So my base is 3. How many am I going to have? I'm going to have 4 of them, and it's a multiplication problem. That's my first step. So I'm going to write 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. That's my expression. I found my answer. I go back and check just to make sure. Are all my numbers a 3? Yes, because that's my base. How many do I have? I have 4 of them, and that's what my exponent is. I'm good for that part. Step 2, then I calculate it. Handy dandy calculator, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 equals 81. That's all I do. So for question 2, I'm going to have my base is going to have extra bases because it tells me that I have an exponent. How many am I going to have? I'm going to have 6 of them. So I have to write out 6 2's because my exponent is a 6. And I make sure that it's a 2 with a multiplication sign every time. So I start out with my first one, and then I make the extras. Times 2, the third one, the fourth one, the fifth one, and the sixth one. That is my expression. That's my first point. Then I pick up my handy dandy calculator, and I type in a 2 followed by a multiplication sign, and I do that a total of 6 times to get 64. That's my second point. So on number 3, how many am I going to have? Well, my exponent, there tells me there's going to be extra bases. There's going to be 3 of them, and my base is 4. So I'm going to take my 4, and I'm going to write it down with multiplication 3 different times. So I have 4, my second one, 4, my third one, 4, and my first step is done. To find it, handy dandy calculator, 4 times 4 times 4, which gives me 64. So you do number 5. Once again, these are not difficult. I get it. You do number 5 and then check your work. So I hope you have an answer. And actually you have 2. You have an expression and then you have the answer to make it an equation. So we saw that my extra bases is a 3. I need to have 3 what? My base is a 5. 3 5s should be 5 times 5 times 5. And that is, when I type it into my handy dandy calculator, 125. Now, the second half to this lesson is the order of operations. So they give it to you up here in this order, parentheses and exponents, then multiply and divide, add and subtract. Now, this would indicate that I have to do parentheses first, followed by my exponents, and that is not the case. That's why I don't teach it necessarily in that order. I teach it as, ask for several extra presents from my dear Aunt Sally. Because I can actually do any of these in a different order, any order that I would want to. I could start with absolute value and then go to square roots and then go to exponents, then go to parentheses. Or there may be parentheses I want to do first, followed by exponents. It depends on if it's going to change my answer or not. So these are grouped together, these are then grouped together, these are then grouped together, and as long as I follow that groupings, or those groupings, then I'm not going to mess up. So once again, my absolute value is that's what my ask is. That's where anything inside those lines is going to be a positive number. My square roots, which we didn't get into because it's not a 6th grade standard, but the idea is if I had a square root of 16, where this S is be a 16, then I'm asking, well, what number times itself makes 16? So the square root of 16 is just 4. My exponents, which is today's lesson, the exponent is going to duplicate my base. And then parentheses, you've been doing parentheses since 3rd and 4th grade. Then, and this is where some of us still get confused, multiplication and division has to be done from left to right. If I have a division problem followed by a multiplication problem, I have to do the division first. It's always from left to right. In the same way, addition and subtraction is always from left to right. If there's a subtraction problem followed by addition, the subtraction has to be done first. This whole entire part of the lesson is about following the steps of the order of operations and making sure that I just take the time to think through it and that I'm doing it all in the right order. If I look at this first one, I have 8 squared minus the, in parentheses, 7 squared plus 1. So where do I have to start? Well, if I go to parentheses, I can't really do parentheses first because I have an exponent in there. I don't have absolute values, I don't have square roots. So we're going to start with the exponents. I have 8 squared, and 8 squared would tell me the exponent, I'm going to have extra of the base, which is 8, so I'm going to have 2 of them. I'm going to have 8 times 8. In the same way, I have 7 squared, so I'm going to have 7 times 7. So as I build that, then right underneath, I have a new layer. This is where I'm going to be picky on you showing your work. If you don't show me this next layer, you're going to get it wrong. You're going to have to redo the assignment. Just simply do the steps that I'm telling you. That way you're prepared for 7th grade because this is going to get a lot harder in 7th and 8th grade, and then especially your freshman year in your freshman math class. Now I'm going to duplicate my parentheses, and I'm going to show that I'm multiplying my 7 times 7. 7 times 7 is 49, and I bring everything else down. This has to be shown on your paper. Then I can combine my parentheses. So 49 plus 1 gives me my 50. I'm going to have a second line. 64 minus 50. Now I can just simply do my answer. And 64 minus 50 is 14. When I try to skip showing my work and I try to mix it all together, I get them wrong. I'm going to be picky when I grade this review assignment, so you better make sure that you're showing me all of your work. All right, so I got 3 more practice problems we're going to do. So I have 5 minus 2 squared plus 12 divided by 4. So where do I have to start? Well, I don't have absolute values, square roots, or parentheses, so I just have to start with my exponents. So my first line is going to show everything other than I want to solve for my exponent of 2 squared. So I'm going to have 5 minus 4, and then I'm going to bring everything else down. Now, what is there to bring down? Well, there's a division problem. So my division problem, I can go ahead and do also on this line because it won't change my answer. With my division, I want to take my 12 divided by 4, and that's just going to give me my plus 3. The plus sign just gets brought down. So my first line of work that I have to show is that I solved for my exponent, and I did my division because it doesn't change my answer. All right, so now what do I have to do? Well, my next step is addition and subtraction from left to right. So now I'm going to subtract. Has to go from left to right. So 5 minus 4 is going to be 1 plus 3. Well, 1 plus 3, then my final answer is 4. So you have 2 lines of showing me your work that you have to show. That's going to be worth 2 points on this assignment. When I go down to this example, then I have 3 squared times 28 minus 20 divided by 2 in parentheses. Well, where do I have to start? Well, I could start in my parentheses, and I could start with division, and then I could do my subtraction because that's all inside of parentheses. Then I can multiply by my exponent and solve for my exponent. When it comes to my ask for several extra presents, my absolute value, square roots, exponents, and parentheses, I just like to go from left to right if I'm able to. So I start with my 3 squared. My 3 squared tells me I'd have 3 times 3, which is 9, and then I bring down my multiplication sign. Then I go to my parentheses. Well, there is math in here that I can do first on this first line of showing my work, because my division would have to be done before my subtraction, and it doesn't change what I'm doing over here. So I'm going to have my 28 minus, but I'm going to go ahead and divide my 20 divided by 2. So I'm going to have 28 minus 10, my first point for showing my work. Now what do? Well, now I have to do my parentheses. I'm going to have 28 minus 10. So I'm going to have 9 times 18. Then I'm going to just type into my calculator and get my answer. So 2 points for showing my work, and 162 should be my final answer for my third point on this question. So I'd like you to go ahead and try your hand at this one. It's just your practice problem, so if you get it wrong, no big deal, won't change your grade. But go ahead and try it and see if you get the same answer that I do. Make sure you follow the order of operations. So hopefully you've done as I've asked you. Pause the video, you have an answer, and you've showed your layer of work that you would have to do to get your full credit on this. So my first one that I'm going to start with, well, I'm going to start with my exponents. Once again, I like to go through this if I possibly can, as long as it doesn't change my answer, and there's not exponents inside my parentheses. If there are exponents inside my parentheses, I'd have to start with that exponent. So I'm going to find my exponent of 5 squared. Then I do have math that would have to come first inside my parentheses here, so I'd have to do my division. So my first line of showing my work would be 30 minus, and then I have to do the 15 divided by 3, which is 5, because 3 times 5 is 15. Then I can divide by finding my exponent answer, so 5 times 5 is 25. Now I have to do my parentheses, and in my parentheses, for my second point of showing my work, is my next line. 30 minus 5 is just 25. 25 divided by 25, and then I find my answer of 1 for my point for showing my work. So hopefully you got 1, and if you didn't, by me showing my steps, you can figure out where your mistake might have been. So it's not a difficult lesson. It's just remembering what my exponent tells me. It tells me to write the base this many times. So I have extra bases multiplied by themselves. Making sure I multiply then each time, step by step, to get what they're equal to. If there were 11 threes, I would have to show 3 times 3 times 3, 11 times. And then when I put it in my calculator, I'd have to make sure that I multiplied 3 by itself 11 times and then hit my equal sign. So one of the things I tried to do to help you out on this lesson was for the 9 questions at the bottom, where you're following the order of operations, put what the answer should be down below in the footer. I just don't have them in the right order. So if you get an answer working through those last 9, it's not in the very bottom list, and your answer is wrong. I reworked each of them twice just to make sure that my answers were correct. So that should help you make sure you get an A on this assignment, which is what our goal is to make sure we get A's on all of these last 5 assignments, last 6 assignments, so that our math grades can go up before our final report cards. Hopefully you've watched the video, you've paid attention, you followed along, and this lesson should be easy.